Gunnar Henderson's starting to find it.
Yeah, it's a young man's game, Roflo, and we've seen so many of these guys come up. The Corbin Carrolls this year, Adley Rutschman, his own teammate. They come up and they just kill it. So our expectations are just so blown out of proportion sometimes that we got to expect they're going to struggle a little bit. He came up to the big leagues last year, got his cup of coffee, got a month or two in the big leagues with the Orioles last year and was able to kind of get his feet underneath him. Comes into this season and gets off to a terrible start. But what I loved about him, I'm going to read a quote, and we're going to get into some love because he's gotten hot lately. Last 15 games, he's hitting .354 with 5 homers and an on-base percentage north of 400. He said, sometimes when you go through it a little bit, it can shake your confidence. But you start to get in between on pitches. There was nothing, pause this, that I was doing fundamentally wrong. And we're going to finish this off with a side-by-side of him hitting a jack yesterday and him struggling and swinging, missing at something a couple of weeks ago. And there is minute differences. So I love the fact that he's aware of your confidence can be shaken. He's not going to let that happen. He's not going to go into the lab and go through wholesale changes. This is an athletic guy, young, making athletic moves at the baseball, and obviously brings every tool to the board. Run this real quick, because that ball is destroyed. That is a slider or a cutter that goes into the sweet spot of a left-hander swing. Down and in. And Baltimore, if we're going to continue, run that back for me. And pause it real quick. If we're going to continue to love on your hitters, get me to a cleaner frame than that. Boom, right there. You got to give me some side angles. We're digging way too deep to try and find good shots of these guys at the plate in Baltimore. Run this. Bang. See you later. The furthest home run ever hit in a regular season game in Camden Yards. And I have to go back to 1993 when the kid hit this ball in the home run derby that kind of changed everything, hat on backwards. Now you're seeing swag go to the nth degree with this generation. Kind of all started with Ken Griffey Jr. But pause this real quick. Kapavs, I want to bring up the first board and kind of show what he's been doing. I'm going to get into his high school stuff here in a second. What he's decided to do in the last 15 games, he's pulling the trigger more. He's gotten more aggressive in his zone. He talked about being in between a little bit, get a little passive on the heater, you find yourself in tougher counts. Take a look. Heart of the zone swing percentage has gone up almost 9%. First pitch, so he's pulling the trigger a little bit earlier. He's getting back on the heater. And fastball, heart of the zone whip percentage, he ain't missing that heater in the middle of the zone. He could hit the off speed as well. Go back to high school, 2019. You are somewhat of a version of what you were in high school. Here he was, second round pick, $2.3 million, run this. There's not much difference. Run it back one more time and we'll get out. And as you, run it back one more time and pause it for me. Right there, pause. And as you get older, you gotta remember, he's at a showcase here, probably nervous as all get out. He's going to get 15 swings and get judged by 800 people. Here, he's starting to feel a little bit sexier about his swing, getting it rolling. So there's a little stiffness in this move right here. But eerily similar of what he was going to become 3-4 years later in the big leagues. But what I like is this. Run that back for me. I know statistically and analytically he's pulling the ball a lot more. But when you can do this, and he has a tendency, run it, to lose his hip a little bit, but his shoulder stays square through the middle of the field. And if you can roast balls into the left center gap, opposite field, we're going to get to a home run in Milwaukee here in a second that about 5 people can do in the entire game. There's a backup cutter slider in the middle of the plate from Brady Singer. He's not cheating to that baseball. That's early in the count right there. This one, who does that? That's like Stanton back in the day in Marlins Park. Run that back for me one more time. I mean, this pitch is up, out, over. He sets his foot down, bink, just drives it out to left, dead left field. And then the other night, Logan Webb kind of hangs a change-up in a 2-1 count. And he knows he's got it. In San Francisco, Marine layer kicking in. So he brings every tool. Pause this. Bring the splits by pitch type up. So take a look at this. Fastball, first 42 games, 239. Last 15, not missing it. 542 slug, but this is crazy. Now he's able to drive the fastball out the other way, doesn't have to cheat. It keeps him back on the off speed. Look at the slug on the off speed recently. That's a 700% increase right there. So now, this is the minute stuff where you can kind of go into the lab and get yourself confused. Bring me up the side-by-side of Gunnar struggling. So let me set this. This is a couple weeks ago when he felt terrible. They were talking about keeping his posture up. This is his homer the other day. I mean, he's in the exact same spot. So you look at this a couple times, and you don't see much. Run it back for me real quick. The only thing I see, he is a guy that wants to pause it. He wants to lose this hip quick. What do I mean by that? This is going. I mean, he is getting this thing going. As long as this stays square, he can do that all he wants to kind of create some clearance for his swing. This can't chase the hip, though. This can't chase the hip. And that's what you see here. Maybe a little overstridey in comparison. Run it back one more time. Pause. Run it back just a little bit. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Drop that foot down one more time. Boom. So that foot down gets down just a little quicker. And what did I say? You can't do anything until your front foot lands. So bring up the Utah Street stuff. He's about to go on fire now. But this was awesome. Tweet by Pete Gilbert. Every Utah Street home run to travel at least 440 feet. Gunnar Henderson, 462. Santander, 443 on down the line. Oops, Jim Thome, 440. So. And every time I think of Camden Yards, Josh Hamilton, didn't he do like 6 for 6 with 3 bombs?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Isn't it crazy you can already chronicle adjustments, and he's played 91 games in his big
I like the fact that he's not like diving into these wholesale changes. I saw Cabrian Hayes went from a leg kick to a toe tap recently this week. This guy trusts himself. Hey, listen, he's a young guy. He got pitched a little tough. He's starting to figure out how they're attacking him.